Today, for a woman, marriage is already an attribute of a person striving for happiness. Now, if this makes my life happier, then perhaps we can consider this situation. But to enter into marriage only because someone needs it, society, relatives, some strange motives, the domestic comfort of a sex life, or something else. That's strange. I can provide for everything myself. Now there are many women who have consciously chosen to be single, living their lives as a single. I see some difference between them. I see this state in women more often coupled with passive search. Well, that is to say, she's so single, declares that he feels good in this relationship. She is happy, she is developing, traveling, she is investing in herself, she is having fun, everything is wonderful, she looks great, she has a very good economy. She is somewhere between 30 and 50 years old. Everything is fine, but still, there is some kind of internal, let's say, this door is slightly open, which says that I'm still waiting, I still have some kind of hope, even the word isn't right. I want to convey this feeling very precisely here. Hope, the word isn't right. But there is some kind of notion that maybe I'll meet a man on my path with whom we can understand each other. That is, some kind of comrade, a battle buddy, some kind of camaraderie, some kind of. These ideas still live within her. So, from this point of view, I'm looking for someone with whom I can develop mutual understanding. That is, this is already the search logic. But again, when you start to delve a little into this mutual understanding, you ask, okay, but what contributes to mutual understanding? And it turns out that mutual understanding is very important. Here are 3 points needed for mutual understanding. First, a height of 180 centimeters or more is very conducive to mutual understanding. Imagine, it turns out that at 178 centimeters, mutual understanding cannot be achieved, but at 180 centimeters or more, mutual understanding immediately emerges. So, the scores on the mutual understanding scale rise sharply. This is the first attribute that contributes to mutual understanding. The second attribute that promotes mutual understanding is an attractive appearance. Imagine, those days when a man had to look slightly better than a monkey or some crocodile are long gone. Today, that's no longer the case. I have a friend who owns a beauty salon. Well, she's been working there for probably 20 years. We've known each other for 100 years. She has her own cosmetology clinic, some kind of, these offices. She provides services there, lip plumping, fillers, Botox, basically, all the necessary procedures. I ask. I say, listen, can you tell me, what's the distribution of men and women like in your clinic? Not specifically, but in general. She says, for the last 5 years, we've consistently reached 40% men. That is, 40% of our visitors are men, and they're mostly, well, for some kind of skincare treatments, not anti-aging treatments, but some kind of skincare treatments, something like that. That means, 60% are women, and this proportion has been strictly maintained for the last 5 years. Well, I mean, all these stories about, how do they say, the guy is smelly, powerful, hairy, there's something about him, not from today. So, the first attribute is height. The second attribute is attractive appearance, and the third attribute, which could also become, well, let's say, it's not easy to understand. It's very important that he earns more than she does. It's important to her, she says it like that. I need him to earn more than me. I ask, why do you need this? You have money like a shithole. Forgive the vulgarity, yes, I mean. Well, that's how we convey the idea. No, but I still need him to earn more than me. There. So, these are the 3 criteria that facilitate mutual understanding from a woman's perspective. It's a social start, so to speak. And everything is fine with that. I mean, I'm not judging them. They have the right to make such demands, to have such demands within themselves. Everything is fine, good. And there are plenty of such men. There are no problems with that at all. There are no problems with this at all. As we can see, there are plenty of men for every taste, height, income, and appearance. You're welcome. That is, there are no problems. So, this isn't the kind of story where I dream about pink ponies. This is a story about how, well, such men really do exist. The other thing is, in her mind, there's this idea that he should, well, as they also describe it, that he doesn't seem to be pursuing me enough. So I have this idea that, in addition to the fact that he must meet 3 basic hygiene criteria for us to be able to develop mutual understanding, he must also put in a tremendous amount of effort to achieve this mutual understanding. Okay, and how do you imagine this person trying to win you over? That is, how can you describe these actions or behaviors that you would perceive as an attempt to win you over? Well, I see more or less 3 such ideas there. First, he should always seek my attention, always text me first, meaning he should, in every possible way, seek my attention, strive for my attention. Second, he should give gifts, some kind of presents, which are a small investment to show that he's interested in me. Well, they describe it in some of these ideas. And thirdly, he must be ready for a fairly long platonic period. So, when I put these 3 criteria together, well, it seems to emerge that he must be immersed in the role of supplicant. Well, that is, what does this symbolize? Yes, these 3, well, what do these 3 attributes tell us? That he is in the role of supplicant to her. But the question arises, why should he be her supplicant? Well, why should he? With his credentials, he should be a petitioner. I have a friend, well, not an acquaintance, a good friend of mine, a wonderful man. About 10 years ago, he said something to me. Like, while he was looking for a wife at the time, he said, he said, I'm sane, I understand everything about myself, I understand how tall I am. That's why I always wear sneakers with 7-centimeter soles. I have a mirror, I understand how I look. Well, my career, okay, I'm more or less okay, but I want a star woman. So, I have this idea that my woman should be beautiful, smart, educated, the most beautiful, the smartest, the very best. That's the kind of idea he had about his wife. But again, we return to the man who is undergoing this hygiene, this very same, infamous hygiene. What joy would he have in being a supplicant? Well, he might try some things. But he'll realize that somehow it's not working, that it's all complicated and time-consuming, and why bother? Well, I mean anyway, if he sees these 5 castles standing before him, yes, well, he'll probably still choose to storm the castle with the smaller dragon, fewer guards, shallower moat, and fewer floors. Why should he take this castle with all these, well, enormous difficulties? Why these excessive nightly exploits? And so we have a situation in which these women, who have chosen to be single, and everything is fine with them, and they live wonderfully, and develop, and earn money, and travel, and have affairs. And everything is fine there, but they still seem to find themselves, on the other hand, in this situation in which those men, who, from their point of view, meet the minimum hygiene requirements, do not make enough effort to pursue them, thereby confirming their own conviction to remain single. And on the other hand, they see, perhaps, attention from men who don't meet their minimum hygiene standards. Persistent attention, which, again, only confirms their desire to remain single because, well, I wouldn't waste my time on that. Well, no, I don't agree with that. And this solitary existence, by its own inertia, continues. Well, it's time to move on to practical recommendations. First, a minimum of hygiene does not guarantee happiness. There are no studies confirming that women in relationships with men taller than 180 centimeters, with attractive appearance and, what's more, higher income, and that this somehow correlates with marital and relationship satisfaction. No such connections have ever been found. In general, that's not what it's all about. What does this correlation model look like in happy, long-lasting, satisfying marriages? It has nothing to do with height, income, or appearance. So, well, if you're in that stratum of women who are happy alone, but you have the door ajar to look for a man with whom you could reach mutual understanding, then remove the bare minimum of hygiene. That is, lower the bar. Second recommendation. There are no studies confirming that a man's over-effort at the initial stage, that he pursues her, that he chases after her, that he somehow accomplishes all these feats, and that this somehow correlates with the subsequent, again, duration of the marriage, correlates with the satisfaction of the marriage. And so on and so forth. Again, no correlations are found. That is, this too has been investigated and re-examined 1,000 times. They take questionnaires about how this woman perceives me, whether my man pursued her or not, whether he did not pursue her, and whether this has nothing to do with the subsequent fate of this marriage. That is, you can have this story at the beginning and 2 months later be in court for divorce. Or you can have this story at the beginning, and everything will be fine. Or you could have this story in the beginning about achieving something, this storming of these castles. And then, well, it might come to nothing at all. This does not bring any positive or negative effects. Maybe, if it's just the idea that I'm pleased that someone is chasing me, I'm pleased that someone is getting what I want, well. If it's just the idea that it's really important, then, well, okay, but it doesn't guarantee anything later. And the third recommendation, if you're a confirmed bachelor, you're still looking for a woman, it makes sense. And I have a solid foundation for this. A married man lives longer, lives healthier, and has an average career. That is, by all average indicators, a married man has a better life than a single man. Health, money, life expectancy, and so on. The list goes on and on down to the floor. There are plenty of studies out there. You can find any of them. The problem is that there are no such studies on women. Or, let's say, they exist, but they actually confirm that, on the contrary, a woman who is married shortens her life expectancy, worsens her health, and worsens her career. A single woman is healthier, happier, and more career successful. That is, it's as if we have the opposite situation here. And it turns out that, unfortunately, I can't give my comrades, women, the recommendation that, well, you go into a relationship anyway, as if it would promise you something. But psychologists must act within the framework of the public good. That is, all recommendations should improve a person's life, and not the other way around, as they say. But still, we humans are ultrasocial animals. So, while dogs are simply social animals, anthropologists call humans ultrasocial animals. It's normal for us to form pairs. I'm so sick of this woman chose thing. What is a choice? It's when there are at least 2 acceptable options. Let's assume that a woman wants to be with a good partner, the vast majority do. But she simply hasn't met him. In that situation, is being alone really a choice? Either being alone or being in a relationship where you are beaten and your life is threatened. This is not an acceptable option. Is that really a choice? No, it's all a choice from one option. It's simply accepting the current situation. The choice in that situation is whether you accept it and live happily, or cry into your pillow every day, considering your life a nightmare. We need statistics on single women who actually made a choice. When they had this option, an acceptable, normal partner with an acceptable relationship and life alone. And they chose to be alone. Usually these are adult women who have a marriage behind them, and years of service and serving others. But let's actually look at the statistics on single women who wanted a partner, but it just didn't work out, didn't find a partner. 70% of them are like that. I believe that if a woman chooses to live alone, she doesn't keep the door ajar. She slams it shut and doesn't sit around waiting for anyone. And if she's no longer looking but waiting for someone, it's as if she's not hoping to meet someone, but she's not giving up either. If a woman decides to live alone, she doesn't go out, doesn't meet anyone, doesn't try to please anyone, and turns everyone down. But this happens rarely. Usually it is still an open door. It seems like I don't want anything else, but what if I come across a good man this time? And the smartest advisors advise lowering the bar. And do you know where this bar comes from? Because women are blamed for choosing an unreliable and low-earning husband. It is her fault that because of her choice the children live in hunger. Society blames the woman. The woman is held responsible. She is forced to choose a richer man so that the children born in this marriage don't go hungry. And they're also suggesting lowering the bar. Women should have high criteria for choosing a partner because they give birth and then bear responsibility for their choice. I'd even say that too many discounts are being made for men these days. We need to be even more selective. I don't need an ugly, poor man who's unwilling to court a woman. So, the advice of a certified psychologist is lower your standards and you'll be happy. Once, when I was young, I listened to too much advice and gave a chance to a nobody who fell madly in love with me. So this worthless man belittled me, manipulated me, cheated on me, was jealous and refused to use protection, and his self-esteem was such that it would be enough for 4 people. And why would I need such dubious happiness? No, standards don't just appear out of thin air, and you shouldn't skimp on yourself, not in small things, and especially not in choosing a partner. I didn't crawl out of the trash heap.